It was a very busy weekend on the Culdee Railway, what with the regular tourist traffic and all that. During the midday layover, the railway's number 4, better known as Culdee, was on his way to greet an important item that had just arrived at Kirk Machan. He was happy to see what, or rather who, that important item was. Ah, good morning, Alaric. Long time no see. Yes indeed, Culdee. It's a pleasure to finally see you at last. And thank you, Donald, for helping to bring me back home. Ah, no problem, laddie. It's a pleasure to help out and know the mountain engine. And it's good to know that I'm not the only one who remembers that day. Come to think of it, why didn't Andy or any of the other Class 87s bring Alaric up here? Because they're all busy with their own services. And look, here comes Jeffrey with his passenger run. Donald and Culdee whistled hello as the electric locomotive passed by. But as he was concentrating on his work, all Jeffrey's driver did in response was a short blast on his horn. And once he's gone, I'll get the all clear to follow him down to Culdee. Enjoy the rest of your day, old boy. A few minutes later, the mountain engines bid their last farewell to Donald, and then the venerable Scotsman puffed off to return to the Little Western. The next day, Culdee was tasked with taking a supply train up to the Summit Hotel, and Alaric watched him getting the wagons ready. May I go with you, Culdee? It's been so long since I've gone to the summit, and I can't wait to see what it's like up there again. I'll have to ask Mr. Barain first, but I'm sure he won't mind. Fortunately for Alaric, the manager gave him the all-clear to go along with Culdee, and they set off up the mountains soon after. Everything was going well, in Alaric's eyes, until just after they left the crossing loop at Devil's Back. Why have we stopped? Because this is the site of Godred's accident, and I just want to pay my respects to our fallen friend. Alright, if you insist. The two locomotives stayed silent, well, as silent as a steam locomotive can be, to remember their colleague who tragically fell down the mountain back in 1900. After a minute's silence had passed, they continued up to the summit. While the workmen were busy unloading the train, Alaric's crew decided to go get lunch in the hotel. This left a couple of absent-minded children free to do as they pleased with Alaric's controls, especially since their mum was too busy demanding to speak to the manager to care about her kids. A little help here, driver? Driver, where are you? Alaric and Culdee's crews were just about to place their lunch order when one of them heard Culdee somehow whistling on his own. Then the men looked outside in horror as the train started rolling away down the hill. Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do to stop them. They somehow made it down Devil's Back without derailing, and rushed past Ernest again at Scarlowy Road, leaving the CFR's number 2 in complete shock. Dear God, this is the last thing I wanted so soon after returning! Alaric, you moron! Don't you remember we've got automatic brakes? Oh yeah, we do. Silly me. Silly you. The two engines tried their brakes, and after several attempts they finally worked as intended. The train came to a stop just before the crossing at Shiloh Station. Alaric was feeling especially breathless, as he had lost a lot of boiler pressure from his regulator being left open. And we have officially stopped. And just in time too. Otherwise he could have hit me and injured me driver. Hang about. What's that stone doing in the middle of the rack rail? Good heavens, how did that get there? Must have been some stupid kid who was messing around where he shouldn't be. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened today. And it's a good job we didn't hit that stone, otherwise we would have come off. Isn't that exactly the same thing that caused Godred's accident? Yes, Alaric. Perhaps he was watching out for us to make sure we didn't suffer a similar accident. Even if you had, there's no way it would have been anywhere near as bad as his experience. That's not the point, Bertie. I think Godred was trying to protect us from beyond the scrap siding. Don't be silly, Culdee. We just got lucky, that's all. Just a minute. How did you two become a runaway in the first place? Some silly tosser creaked my regulator open when my driver wasn't looking. Well, that should teach him to bring a packed lunch from home instead of leaving his locomotive unattended. My driver did that once at Croven's Gate. He forgot to set the handbrake before getting lunch and I rolled forward, taking out someone's fence in the process. Now that I think about it, how are we going to get back to Kirk Machan when our crews are stranded at the summit? I saw Ernest pass by with his passenger run earlier. Perhaps he'll bring your crew down with him. And sure enough, Ernest eventually returned from the summit with Culdee and Alaric's crews on board. After inspecting the CFR's numbers 4 and 7, and once Bertie's driver got the stone out of the rack rail, the whole gang continued down to Kirk Machan, leaving Bertie to go about his business. As for the boys who started the runaway in the first place, they were promptly dealt with by the police. Later that evening, the locomotives were back at Kirk Machan discussing the day's events. Well, I'll certainly take Bertie's advice about packed lunches from now on. And Alaric? Yes, Michael? I'm sorry for letting my guard down at the summit. I'll make sure to never make such a stupid mistake again. You certainly had an eventful day, didn't you, Alaric? That may be the biggest understatement I've ever heard. But regardless, I'm still happy to be home at last, without referencing Season 4. And we're glad to have you back, old bean. The engines continued chatting away for a little while longer, until it was finally time to go to sleep. Alaric was happy when he finally returned to normal passenger service. And although he was glad that he and Culdee didn't derail, he was still very puzzled as to how Godred could have been watching over them.